Chapter 431 Sign or Die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, before the king personally places the crown on his head and coronates him with all honors, there is a slight development that needs to be addressed by Lord Raven in front of this courtroom, since it involves the traitorous deeds of his known associate Max Rajput. The Prime Minister of the Aurelius clan said as silence enveloped the entire courtroom. If Hazriel had not already warned Max about what was about to happen, he would have lost his temper over this political move. He had absolutely no involvement with this shit, hence his defense of the matter would come off as aggressive, which is exactly how he decided to act this time to lure Regus Aurelius deeper into his own game. "May I know what exactly are the charges?" Max said with a hint of danger in his voice as many lords tensed up fearing what was to come next. Regus however had no reaction. He amusedly waved his hand and told the Prime Minister to indulge in Raven's wishes. Max Rajput is charged with the murder of an Aurelius family government official in the royal district. Eyewitnesses have seen a 6'4" human male who has the capability to use Thunder Blast spell at the scene, with one eyewitness saying that the murdered had a distinctive scar on his cheek, which upon cross-examination pointed towards the involvement of the human Max Rajput, the sworn ally of Lord Raven Bloodfall. The Prime Minister of the Aurelius clan said as he made up the most absurd story. To an outsider who had no idea what was going on, the words of the Aurelius clan were law. If they said someone had murdered their clansman, then someone must have done so, hence all eyes scrutinized Raven at the moment. The only people who truly understood the absurdity of the situation were Asiva, Severus, Sebastian, Anna and Zippo. However, despite understanding everything, they could not say anything. "These charges are absurd. I will not lower myself by being answerable to this garbage," Max said with anger and confidence as Regus Aurelius sighed deeply and stood up from his seat. "Raven, my boy, a man has been killed, and that man happens to be my brother-in-law. I've promised my weeping sister that I will get justice for her on the matter. I'm not here to question your integrity, especially not when it's your big day, but please understand, boy, the reputation of your monarch is at stake here," Regus Aurelius said in a sad voice, as many in the audience fell for his trickery and truly felt sad for his predicament. Little did they know that Regus himself had orchestrated the murder of his own brother-in-law via a human assassin with a scar on his right cheek. On one hand it neutralized his brother-in-law who was a corrupt official, and on the other hand it saved the family image from being tarnished. As an added bonus, it also implicated Max Rajput and made his life difficult, a truly masterfully crafted plan. While Max could dismiss the Prime Minister of the Aurelius clan, he could not dismiss a request by Regus Aurelius himself. Since the monarch of the vampire clan had personally requested him for something, he had to agree to it. "I have no idea about Max Rajput's involvement in this matter, King Regus. My condolences for your loss, but I'd like to express my personal opinion on the matter that it's unlikely that Max committed this murder," Max said with a restrained, calm voice as Regus nodded solemnly to his words. "I'll trust your words, boy. Since you said you had nothing to do with it, I'll trust that it has nothing to do with you. But before that, I hope you don't mind signing a system contract saying the same. It's not like I don't trust you, but since this is a public matter, it's better to always be 100% certain. Sign a contract to prove your innocence without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll just outlaw Max Rajput from all vampire lands. That will be my justice," Regus Aurelius said. Max was calm when he heard this. If he had no idea about what was going to come, he would have believed that there could be no problems for him signing the system contract. However, within the contract was a deep fake. "I will sign whatever contract you wish for me to sign, my king, but afterwards I request you provide me with a chance to prove my friend's innocence on the matter. I'm genuinely concerned about the true murderer going unpunished, which is why I must help the Aurelius clan narrow the search of suspects by eliminating innocent ones," Max said with a slight panic in his voice, as if he was trying to exonerate someone he loved from their guilt. Regus Aurelius smiled. The boy was playing right into his trap. Since the request he made was reasonable, Regus had no reason to decline, as he accepted the conditions set by Max and promised to give Max Rajput a fair trial when captured. The Prime Minister of the Aurelius clan then drafted a system contract in front of Max and presented it before the entire courtroom for Max to sign. Max glanced at the contract, reading its contents as he sneered at the sophisticated trickery used by Regus Aurelius. "I'm neither involved, nor aware, nor am I really Max Rajput myself." This line made it so that it would become impossible for Max to sign the contract and not be punished had Hazrael not already helped him because he was really Max Rajput. There was no actual need for Regus Aurelius to phrase the contract signing this way. A trap so deep Max could have never anticipated it. However, there it was in front of his eyes, a true reminder that he could be wiped off from the face of the universe even when he was not in a war environment but sitting in his own palace surrounded by his own people in a civil setting. Max watched the facial expression on Regus Aurelius's face and then scanned the contract again before scanning the whole room. His actions made it seem like he was hesitant to sign the contract and looking for a way to escape. Scanning his surroundings to figure out which was the fastest way to leave. Regus, who saw this eye movement, chuckled in his heart. Even if Max managed to miraculously increase his speed stat to the 10x multiplier, he would still be stopped dead in his tracks by Regus Aurelius. The monarch was definitely not going to let Max run away. Although Regus had assigned Julian the mission to conduct a background check on Raven and Max Rajput, he had also conducted a check of his own. The fact that Raven had no surname and no known background before his rise in the military bothered him a lot. When he sent his inside man to check the records of the Titus clan military, the only establishment where Raven needed to do a full disclosure for entry, he found out that his file of records was missing. Vega had gone out of his way to provide anonymity to this one brat and had also hosted a grand banquet for him, both events which did not sit well with Regus and only deepened his suspicions towards Raven's true identity. On the other hand, when he searched the records of the University for nourishment of young talents, he found out that Shikuni the Terrifying had gone there to spectate the matches of Raven. Shikuni was known to be cold and calculating. An existence of his level was sure not to idle around a vampire like Raven for no reason. The only conceivable explanation of this event in Regus's mind was that Raven was none other than Max Rajput, who had undergone a race change. His theory was only backed up by the small things he noticed about Max's behavior, which was his momentary reluctance to drink blood when offered, and him smelling the blood-filled chalices for a while before developing the appetite to take a sip. This behavior was a psychological effect of him being human once, which is why Regus genuinely believed that the two individuals were one and the same. Despite all his theories suggesting they were one and the same, he could still not explain their varied skill set in battle and how the two of them were able to manifest at two different locations at the same time. There was something connecting Max with Raven that Regus could not understand. However, he did not need to understand. Today, by making this simple move, he could find out about the truth of the matter while also dealing a tactical blow to the Bloodfall clan by isolating its key ally. At first he had little hopes for the event to be interesting, but looking at the panic in the eyes of Raven, Regus realized that things were bound to get more interesting than he thought. Even today he had tried thrice to examine Raven's stat panel. However, his attempts were thwarted by some unknown artifact. This time it was not Vega's ring. Since Raven was wearing nothing on his finger, however, there was still something on his body that Regus could not figure out, which blocked his perception. Although it irritated him, he understood that he could always figure out what object had such capabilities after he killed Raven for not signing the contract and branding him a traitor. "What's taking so long, Lord Raven? Are you perhaps unhappy with the phrasing of the contract? Or are you just guilty of the charges?" Regus asked in a chilly voice as he gave Raven the ultimatum in his own sense to sign or die. Chapter 432 Max Rajput. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's taking so long, Lord Raven? Are you perhaps unhappy with the phrasing of the contract? Or are you just guilty of the charges? Regus asked as the temperature of the room dropped by a few degrees. Vega frowned. He understood that this was not a situation he could intervene in, but since he knew Max's real identity, he also understood that he should not be dumb enough to kill an Aurelius. Since this was the case, he could not wrap his head around Max's reluctance to sign the contract, unaware of the trap that Regus had set within. Max summoned the lying pen from his inventory and then, in front of Regus's observant gaze, signed the contract. For a moment Max's heart beat furiously. He was extremely worried about his safety if the pen could not fool the Universal Queen. However, much to his satisfaction the Queen did not punish him for lying on a contract. "Here, my king," Max said as he passed the signed contract scroll back to Regus Aurelius, who maintained a stoic look as he received it. Regus was beyond disappointed at this outcome. He felt his intelligence questioned at this point as the hours that he had spent deliberating the origins of Raven seemed to be for naught. Him signing this contract was a confirmation on his part that he was indeed not Max Rajput, and that the two were different identities. Much to his dismay, Regus understood that he would be unable to purge Raven in front of everyone present here today. The room collectively breathed a sigh of relief when Raven was exonerated of all charges, as his involvement in the matter would have been a big blow to the vampire society whose youth had begun to idolize him. "I hope this satisfies your curiosity, Prime Minister," Max said in an authoritative tone as he silently praised Hazriel in his heart. Without her help, he was probably going to be dead at this moment of time. Indeed, Lord Raven's moral character is unquestionable. This was all but a formality. "We have no doubt in our minds that the despicable human Max Rajput must have been acting over his own devices," the Prime Minister shamelessly said as he conveniently shifted the blame away to a human. This was the small victory that Regus had planned to settle on, as although he could not purge Raven here today, he could at least paint Max Rajput in black and cut off one of Raven's main allies from ever helping him again. Rumors suggested that Max Rajput's battle prowess was legendary just like his brother's, and given enough time it was sure to get more and more impressive. Since he could already kill Tier 6 gods, given enough time he could probably threaten Tier 7 lords too, which was why isolating him from Raven was an absolute necessity. Unfortunately for Regus, however, there was going to be no victory for him today, not big, nor small. "Pardon my interruption. Initially I was not planning to intervene in his personal matters, but now that the king has promised a fair trial for him, let me call him forth. Max Rajput is actually residing within this very palace, and the reason behind why I'm sure he is not the assassin in question is because he is heavily injured and has been recuperating here since the war ended," Max said calmly as his words caused an uproar within the crowd. "If he was already here, why did you go through all this charade? Aren't you acting too smart in front of the king?" Julian blasted Max over his questionable judgment. However, his words were useless now. Even if Max turned out to be the criminal in question, Raven had proven his innocence in the matter without a shadow of a doubt by signing that contract. Julian could curse his judgment all he liked, but there was nothing he could do about it. "Silence, Julian, the king can speak for himself," Vega blasted Julian right back, not being one to miss the opportunity to take a shot at him. The chatter in the room grew louder as unnecessary questions were starting to be raised. In the end Regus had no choice but to click his tongue as he said, "Silence." Immediately the entire room fell silent as Regus threw a pondering glance over Raven's face. He was unable to peer into Raven's secrets, however, he could perhaps inspect Max Rajput when he was summoned in this hall, which would clear up a lot of doubts for him. All in all, this matter had already blew up in his face, and since it was already a controversy, he needed to see it through to the end now. "Summon him. If it is as you say, I shall exonerate him of all charges here in this very courtroom. But if he is found to be lying, I shall execute him here personally," Regus said as he gave his judgment. It was time for Max to smile now, as it was his turn to lay the trap down now. Since the monarch had tried to scheme against him here today, he would be damned if he let Regus Aurelius walk out of this courtroom without his image being tarnished. Soon, the clone, who was wrapped up in bandages all over his upper body and arms with only his fingertips and face showing, walked slowly into the hall with ragged steps. Countless inspection spells landed on the clone's body the moment he walked into the room, but Max had already given him Vega's ring. The clone was immune to any and all inspection abilities, which would hide the abnormality of him not having a status bar perfectly. With a cocky smile on his face that oozed superiority complex, the clone waltzed into the courtroom, surrounded by the uppermost vampire echelon, and without even greeting Regus Aurelius, he said, "You summoned me here, old friend. Sorry I came without a gift to your coronation." Chapter 433 Biting at Everyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You are in the presence of Regus Aurelius, the vampire monarch, the ruler of Ixtal and the keeper of peace. The first thing you should do when you enter the room is to kneel before him. Human, even though you are not a vampire, it's common sense to show monarchs respect, Julian said in an icy tone as hatred visibly oozed out of his eyes at the sight of Max Rajput. Regus's calm demeanor had finally broken. He could no longer maintain his nonchalant expression when his inspection of Max Rajput failed. Max had very cleverly covered his clone in bandages the previous night when he came up with the plan for this morning. The way he had wrapped him up made it impossible for one to see that he was wearing a ring underneath the bandages using the naked eye, but while this could fool the others, Regus Aurelius could still make out that he was wearing one. Regus was no fool. He knew that this was Vega's ring immediately, which was why his demeanor crumbled. Vega was silently supporting Max Rajput. This was a huge headache for Regus. "I'm sorry, were you talking to me right now?" the clone asked impudently as he stared at Julian as if looking at a clown. Julian was taken aback by this line of questioning. He had thought that Max Rajput would kneel immediately when being surrounded and pressured in such a manner, but the man was extremely bold. "Of course I'm talking to you, you dimwit. You see any other human in this room?" Julian snapped back. However, the clone just raised his palm towards Julian as if asking him to stop speaking. "I'm sorry, old foggy, but I don't bow down to bitches, bitches bow down to me," the clone said with extreme arrogance as immediately the entire courtroom drew their weapons, ready to kill Max Rajput for daring to insult their king. Now boys, I know we all love some action, but if you force me to fight, I swear half of this courtroom will die before I'm killed, and even if I am killed, even if Max Rajput, the brother of Rudra Rajput, dies here today, not a single one of you will live to tell the tale for more than 5 years. Either Guildmaster Neatwit, or Master Johnny, or Sister Patricia, or Emperor Cervantes, someone will come for your lives and there will be nothing that you can do about it. So yes, pull your weapons on me and come at me at once like the pack of hyenas that you all are. But remember, there will be hell to pay," the clone said with a maniacal smile on his face as he calmly pulled out his own sword from his inventory. The clone's threat made everyone falter. None of the lords present had any sympathy for the human Max. If Regus gave the order, then they would all jump on him at once, but his chilly warning that half of them would die in the process and that there would be hell to pay later was somewhat unnerving to many. "You talk too big and act too arrogant, but you are just borrowing the name and the strength of the giants behind you. Without them you are nothing," Lucius Aurelius spat as he came to dislike this Max Rajput character a lot. However, Max spat right back at him. "Ho ho ho, the pot calling the kettle black. Lucius fucking Aurelius, take that last name out. Do you have the qualifications to even stand in this room then? Let's change the scenario. It's you surrounded by us humans because you were invited to some bullshit trial for a crime you did not commit and promised a fair assessment, but the moment you were summoned, you were asked to put your pride aside and kneel. What would you do, Prince?" "I'll tell you what you would do, you would kneel," the clone said as he chided Lucius. "Never. I'm an Aurelius, I don't kneel," Lucius shouted right back, adamant to show his pride. "Likewise, I'm a Rajput, I don't kneel either. It's nothing personal, but my brother was the strongest fighter in the universe, so understand the pride I carry on my shoulders. As for using the name of the giants behind me, if Lucius Aurelius was in the same situation, would he not tell us humans that his dad was Regus Aurelius and that there would be hell to pay if they killed him? How am I being unreasonable then? When I'm doing the same as what each and every one of you would do. I was summoned to your hall by you, Raven my friend. I think it's about time you show some unbiased judgment on this situation," the clone demanded as all eyes shifted towards Raven. Max inwardly smiled. The situation had developed exactly as he wanted to. Today he wanted to give each and every one of these vampires a reminder about who exactly Max Rajput was, so that in the future if Regus had such schemes about his real identity he would think twice about messing with him. Dropping to one knee, Max said, "My king, you promised him a fair trial. In my possession is a truth orb which can determine the authenticity of his words without a shadow of a doubt. Please interrogate him fairly for the crimes he is suspected of. As for the other matters of his bad tongue, I personally apologize for it. His temper is bad, but he means no harm." Max acted perfectly as he begged Regis for justice, because in this setting Regis had no choice but to grant his request. If he killed the clone now and trade embargo or problems arose with two major monarchies because of it, then all the blame of the matter would fall on Regis Aurelius's shoulders. His masterful bait into making Lucius admit that forced into the same situation he would not kneel either completely legitimized his behavior, which made punishing him even more difficult for Regis. In the end, Regis could only hatefully nod for the trial to go forward. Today he had been played beautifully by this human and vampire duo. //////n, bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. We are at number 7, let's keep it at this till the month ends for a mass release on May 1st /////. Chapter 434 Lord Raven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. First question. What is your name? Max asked in a calm tone. The clone, who had already practiced all the answers with Max in private the previous night, confidently placed his hand on the truth orb as he said, "The name given to me is Max Rajput. It is the name my parents gave me at birth and not the name that I chose for myself when I ascended to Tier 1. The truth orb glowed in a bright shade of green as it indicated that whatever the clone said was true. The previous night, Max had experimented with the truth orb a lot, and he realized that as long as you construct your sentences in a way that it is true, even if the interpreted meaning behind it is ambiguous, it will be read as true. With the clone saying that Max Rajput was the name given to him and not specifying that it was given to him by Raven and not the real parents of Max Rajput, he let the crowd believe that it was the name assigned to him at birth. Have you left the walls of this palace within the last 5 days? Max asked as the entire courtroom focused their attention on the truth orb under the clone's hand, waiting for this reply. If the clone had not left the palace within the last 5 days, then the matter of him assassinating the Aurelius official would be settled. However, if he did leave the palace, then the interrogation would need to be more thorough. No, I have not left the palace in the last 5 days, the clone said as the truth orb under his palm again glowed a bright shade of green, much to the dismay of Regis Aurelius. Max had brilliantly crafted his question. He and the clone did leave the palace in a way when they raided the mage tower in the ruins. However, that event was exactly 5 days ago, and since then the clone was dead and had only been summoned the previous night. In the time frame of the previous night till the courtroom case he had not left the palace at all, so when the clone replied to Max's answer of whether or not he had left the palace in the last 5 days, he could say that he did not, but once again it would not be the full truth but rather a truth that everyone would misunderstand. Have you killed anyone in the last 5 days? Max asked as he silently gazed towards Regis Aurelius. I have not, the clone replied as the truth orb glowed bright green once again, causing the courtroom to break into hushed chatter. Have you killed any Aurelius clan member ever in your life? Max asked with his eyebrows raised. Never, the clone replied as the orb once again grew a shade of red. Good, now lie for me once deliberately. Did you answer any question I asked you here? Dishonesty. Max asked. Yes, the clone replied as the orb under him glowed red, indicating that he was lying. With this the trial proceeding came to a quick end as the clone removed his hand from over the orb and began rotating and holding his wrist as he glanced casually towards Regis Aurelius, who was looking at him with hateful eyes. My lord, do you have any more questions for him? Or is this proof enough? Max asked Regis in a humble tone. However, he was really just rubbing salt over Regis Aurelius's wounds. It's enough, the human is not the perpetrator of the event, it seems. Exonerate him of all charges, Regis Aurelius said in a calm tone, but the spite within his voice was hard to contain. Not only did Max Rajput show disregard for him in this courtroom, by doing this trial over a truth orb, he made a clear mockery of the entire vampire community. He came in charged as a murderer, provoked everyone, and by the end was exonerated of all charges and was going to walk away scot-free. The countless days that Regis had spent planning this event out had been for naught, and not only could he not tighten his hold on Raven, but he also found irrefutable evidence that the vampire with a mysterious background is definitely not the same individual as Max Rajput. This made things difficult for Regis, as with Raven becoming an official lord today, dealing with him in the future would be comparatively more difficult. He could not openly issue assassination missions against Raven, or insult him like a brat on social events. The vampire society consisted of 36 lords and a king, and although the king was the strongest and most feared, he could not needlessly suppress a lord. As if Vega was not enough of a headache for Regis, he would now also need to be on the lookout for Raven Bloodfall. Prime Minister. Fire our intelligence bureau officers who were responsible for this horrid report gathering when we go back. Because of their idiotic claims, we had to question Honorable Lord Raven and his human friend, a true travesty. They should pay the price for sending such bullshit reports and ruining a man's coronation ceremony, Lucius Aurelius said, breaking the awkward silence in the room as he tacitly gave his support to Raven. Indeed, Prince Lucius, over this matter we are the most ashamed. The Prime Minister, who was quick-witted, also backtracked immediately as if they did not do so. After all the proof the Bloodfall clan had given, the Aurelius clan would appear to be bullies. In the first place, it was not the Aurelius officials who were inept, but rather it was a political play made by the monarch which was thwarted beautifully by Raven. The Prime Minister had to reassess his image of Raven, as this military-minded captain seemed to have much more political prowess than what his resume seemed to indicate. Enough chatter, let's move on with the coronation ceremony now that this has been settled, Regis said as he wanted to get the hell out of this courtroom at the first opportunity that presented itself. Today, although nobody dared to directly find fault with Regis for rashly blaming an innocent individual, it was within everybody's hearts that the Aurelius clan might find blame with a clan for no apparent reason. He had lost face because of this fiasco, and with his mood reaching absolute rock bottom, he wished to be done with the coronation ceremony and get the hell out of this place. The clone stood to a side, as he waited patiently to see the scene that was about to unfold. Regis Aurelius personally took the crown in his hands, as he slowly walked towards Max, who was seated on the throne upright with a wide smile plastered on his face. Vega looked at the boy with a beaming smile as he wrapped a hand around Julian, who was seated beside him, just to annoy him at this moment. Stars were sparkling in the eyes of Anna, Asiva, Sebastian and Severus at this moment as Regis Aurelius climbed the stairs leading to the throne and stood beside Max with the crown in his hands. I, Regis Aurelius, by the authority vested inside me as the king of all vampires, declares Raven Bloodfall, the first patriarch of the Bloodfall clan and a lord of the vampire monarchy. From this day forward, upon my name, it is mandated that all vampires regardless of their rank, shall refer to him as Lord, and all official records shall show the same. I coronate him with the hopes that he would lead his people to prosperity and shall govern his territory with kindness and justice. All hail, Raven Bloodfall, the Lord of Dombivli, hail. Everyone in the hall collectively bowed from their hips once the crown was placed over Max's head as they began clapping softly for him being successfully coronated. Regis Aurelius's hands were trembling with anger as he had placed the crown over Max's head, but there was nothing else that he could do about it. He had lost today, and had to swallow the bitter pill as a result. On the other hand, Max was on top of the world as he felt extremely comfortable with the crown being placed over his head. He had worked hard for this, and today finally his moment had arrived. He had become the founding patriarch of the Bloodfall clan, and from today his occupation of the land had become official. Now, regardless of any internal revolts by the population, he could not be easily stripped of his title, and his control over the territories had been legitimized. Regis walked down the stairs after coronating Raven, as he threw a menacing glare at the unassuming Vega, who had no idea why he received the unprovoked scorn, before walking out of the small courtroom. With Regis leaving, the suffocating pressure in the room was elevated, as the festive atmosphere returned. The best wine in the entire universe was brought in by the waiters, and everyone was poured a glass of the exquisite drink that costed nearly 1 million gold coins a glass. Max's friends were dancing in joy, especially Sebastian, who refused to drink from a glass and directly began chugging down the whole bottle. Even Lucius seemed to be very happy, alongside Vega and the other top lords as they seemed to be discussing how uncultured humans like Max Rajput were. However, amidst all this chaos and happiness, Max's eyes were only focused on one system notification which said, "System notification. You have gained a new title, Vampire Lord." He did it. The weight of the crown over his head was proof that he did it. He had taken the first big step towards becoming the king. Chapter 435 Plan for All Planets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the ceremony, every lord and their representatives left Dombivli City one after another, but not before leaving a list of invites for Raven and his top officials to attend to discuss future business. Only a year and 2 months remained until the next clan assessment, and the focus of all clans was soon to shift towards improving their standing. Before leaving, Lucius met with Max and talked in length about all the parameters that the assessment officers tested and how Max could get a great assessment in the upcoming clan rankings. In the first place, the throne Max sat on today was a conglomeration of 2 clans, the Kingsman clan and the annexed Paredes clan, which meant that his social position was already quite decent. However, with Will Kingsman dead and the majority of the royal treasury empty, the current financial and military might of the Bloodfall clan was not great. Max had little over a year to rectify this situation and somehow try to push for a top 15 spot within the rankings. To do so, Max needed to improve on 3 main criteria. 1. Military might. Currently his clan had only one Tier 5 warrior serving under him in Rovan, and his own strength was only Tier 4. If he wanted to get a decent assessment, he needed to not only lure more talents over to his side, but also simultaneously increase the strength of himself and his close friends to have a strong center of power. With some of his friends not even reaching Tier 4 yet, there was no question in his mind that personal development would take priority in the coming days. 2. Espionage network. Currently Max had no means to spy on the other clans and had no intelligence bureau of his own. For the smooth functioning of any government, an intelligence bureau's existence and operation was necessary for both domestic and universal needs. Only by having an IB could he prepare for major universal events and upcoming operations without being blindsided. 3. Export links. Currently, Dombivli City accounted for nearly 90% of the territory's trade volume, and the only industry that the planet dominated was textile. Dombivli City had big silk farms which produced high-quality silk to be tailored into robes, which were exported at high prices universally. However, apart from the textile industry, Dombivli was not a major player in any other economic space. Max understood that to become indispensable to the other vampire clans he needed to become a dominant player in other industries. The way Max envisioned his kingdom, he wished for the Paredes capital planet to become the next Dombivli City, a planet with a teleportation center and an industrial hub dabbling in all forms of exports and imports. He wished to convert Gianmi planet into a blacksmithing safe haven, which dealt with the production and processing of raw metals and then supplied it to indigenous smiths with master blacksmiths to create a metal-cultured planet. In stark contrast to Gianmi planet, Max wished to convert the wet planet into an alchemical powerhouse, with many isolated alchemy facilities proficient in producing the potions that Max had retrieved from the ancient ruins. This facility was going to be mostly government-controlled with the potion formulas and their sale government-regulated. However, the future vision of the planet was that of an alchemic heaven where all researchers wished to stay and create their alchemic shops in because of the ease of selling their findings, getting government grants and obtaining materials. For the Grey House planet, whose atmosphere was one of a kind and not suitable for agriculture, Max wished to convert it into a tourist destination for the elite. Only 2 hours from the Paredes capital via a ship, the Grey House planet in Max's vision had everything from amusement parks, historical parks, halls of fame, live combat coliseum and many such entertainment facilities that could draw fanatics from all over the universe to come and spend money. Finally, for the shared custodian planet of green soil, Max hoped for it to become a government/military retirement colony of abundance. A near-tax-free safe haven where only the most honorable citizens could live a life of abundance after serving the Bloodfall clan faithfully for their tenure as a public servant. His projects were ambitious and needed to overcome a lot of challenges such as talent shortage, logistics, workforce shortage and more. However, Max was willing to tackle all these problems at an expedited rate by spending as much money as he earned, and the only goal to be overall prosperity. Naturally, he could not do it alone and needed a robust government structure to deal with this issue, which was exactly why the first step towards realizing his dream was the poaching of talents. Max needed a proper government with functioning departments, and he needed that to be done within the next 2 months. Civil service examinations were to be conducted on all Bloodfall clan planets, and the candidates most suitable to serve were to be slotted in government services within the next 2 months. Entrusting this job to Asiva, Max turned his full personal focus on expanding the military. Meanwhile, Kremeth, the energy of the treasure is completely contained. I think the core is self-sustaining now. With the proper runic manipulation we can channel its power to create a time loop, where the time inside the chamber will flow extremely slowly compared to outside the chamber. A year inside will be only a day outside. But the next stage requires us to start carving inside the chamber. With how old Sea God Num and I are, I don't think it's the best course of action for us to go in, Angakok. It might take only 3 months of real-world time to get it done, but to us we shall be losing a century. At this old age, I'm not willing to trade so much of my life force for such a trivial part of the project. Even without us, you can complete the internal carvings in 5.6 months' time. Don't force us to do this, old friend, Kremeth said as he requested Angakok to be considerate of his old age. Kremeth had worked hard alongside everyone else to build this hyperbolic time chamber Angakok desired, and now only the internal carving phase was left, but he absolutely did not wish for being a part of this next phase since it was going to cost him a century of his precious life. Angakok only threw a glance at Kremeth and Num before tossing them both a small vial of golden liquid. Divine Vitality Potion. Kremeth said as he gulped in fear. The potion that Angakok had casually tossed towards them was a divine vitality potion, one that was able to restore lost vitality of gods for up to 200 years. A priceless treasure that Kremeth could sell his kidney for if its brewing method was not downright evil. 100 million bipedal mortals needed to die, and their bone marrows needed to be extracted to brew 10 small vials of this potion. No light faction god would ever decide to pay such a price for some vitality, yet Angakok was somehow in possession of 2 such vials. Kremeth hesitated before drinking it, however, Num had no hesitation whatsoever. Drinking the vial happily, he trotted behind Angakok like a dog following his master as he looked cheerful and ready to dive into the time chamber. Kremeth on the other hand knew that drinking one such vial would definitely terribly affect his soul's karmic value. However, looking at Angakok's attitude, it was clear that whether he drank it or not, he was still going to be forced to work inside the chamber. What perplexed Kremeth was, how did Angakok get his hands on such a vial, and if he was indeed in possession of 2, why did he not use it on himself as of yet when his body was the most ancient of them all? Even if one had the ingredients, the process of reducing the bone marrow of so many mortals into this golden potion was not easy and required at least 10 Grandmaster alchemists to cooperate for a decade to reduce correctly, which only made the question of how Angakok got his hands on one even more terrifying. Was Angakok truly in hibernation since the end of the Chaos War? Or was he carefully preparing for something while in his slumber? Being old and not in a position to refuse the chance to turn back time 200 years, Kremeth begrudgingly took the potion as a vitality storm surged within his body as his vitality stats started to increase at a rate of plus 250 every passing second for the next 2 minutes, reversing many of the wrinkles on his face and the aging in his bones. Walking behind the others in shame, Kremeth too entered the time chamber as he sighed and picked up the chisel to start carving the runic inscription once inside. His disciple had roughly 3 months left to grow in the outside world, before Angakok would forcefully abdicate him and bring him to this chamber to train. Chapter 436 Search for Talents. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why the fuck am I always the one to go with you on dangerous fucking missions? Just yesterday I was drinking fine wine, dancing, singing, happy. I thought now this is the moment my life changes for the better, the moment where I don't have to go on adventures because my boy is a lord, but no. 2 fucking days later, and here I am on a Titus frigate with 15 soldiers and you without Anna or a Siva because you deemed the mission too dangerous for them to accompany us, but you will still take me with you everywhere even though I'm just a small dwarf, Sebastian said in protest as he vented against Max who had dragged Sebastian out of his bed early in the morning for some undisclosed mission. Why do you automatically assume it's dangerous? Maybe I did not bring a Siva and Anna along because it's inappropriate, Max said as he patted Sebastian on the shoulder and gave him a wink. Sebastian. What do you mean? You mean to say we are going to some adult establishment zone? Some red area? Max. Yep, Sebastian. But you have a Siva, you know she will kill you if she finds out that you were fooling around. Max. She doesn't need to know, but you can sell me out if you want. Sebastian. Of course not. Sebastian, the dwarf never violates the bro code. If you want to do the SNU with some aliens, I don't give a fuck. I'm a bachelor, a stud, I'll just be busy for 5 minutes in my own room. Max. 5 minutes. Sebastian. 3, but you know I like to exaggerate. Max. Haha, my man. Sebastian. So where are we going seriously? Max. Dark faction. Sebastian. No, this time I'm serious, where are we going? Max. Dark faction. Sebastian. I said, I'm serious. Raven, where are we going, my man? You have already ruined my morning, I have already brought my sleepy ass on this ship, now the least that you can do for me is reply honestly. Where are we going? Max. Dark faction, going there to kill some demons and recruit a particular talent. Sebastian. Max. I did not need anyone on this mission, I could have completed it alone, but since we might encounter some demons along the way, I thought I'd bring you with me, since I know how much you hate that race. Sebastian. Max. What? Should I not have brought you with me? Sebastian. Oh hell no. For killing the damn demons you can sign me up any day of the week. Fuck, I'll sacrifice a lifetime worth of sleep if it means I can spend that time cutting through some demon meat. Max. My man. That's why you're the only one I brought today. Sebastian. Demon mofo s, Big Daddy Seb's coming for you all. Meanwhile Dark Sorrow was a light faction human, whose planet was raided by demons 15 years ago. At the time he was a Tier 2 soldier working for the local Baron and was deployed to fight the demon wave near the Baron's residence. The demons were extremely powerful and the task of driving them back seemed to be impossible for the weak Baron regiment. Despite putting up a decent fight, the barony was razed by the demons with the evil dark faction bastards killing all men, women and children indiscriminately as they pleased. Dark Sorrow, who had an arrow plunged to his neck, was knocked out during the fight with the demons, and had been overlooked as dead on the bloody battlefield, only to be found alive 2 days later when the horror had passed. Apparently, the Church of Light and the loyal paladins of Goddess Benyugar did arrive on the planet and help the kingdom repel the demon invasion. The lives of those who lived in small baronies like the one where Dark Sorrow lived were already compromised. When he finally woke up, he found that his old mother, his wife and son had all been killed in the demon attack, yet the object of his rage, the evil demons who attacked his planet had already been exterminated by the Church. Going mad with sorrow and rage, he joined the ranks of the Holy Church and changed his class to a demon slayer, trained with the powers of light. In the coming years he became a Tier 5 warrior before his bloody approach and merciless killing of demons got him ousted from the Church of Light, which wanted to promote peace and compassion amongst its followers. After being ousted, he started his own mercenary group which only took on demon extermination missions and was seen fighting on dark faction lands alongside about 50-odd adventurers who were all seasoned war veterans. His group, known as the Adjudicators, went on to accomplish many great feats in history. However, in the end they were wiped out by god Memphitos who served Lucifer. Max, who had heard about this mercenary group in his past life, had a flash of inspiration when he heard their name in a report the other day just as he was pondering on the problem of poaching a capable Tier 5 military chief. Having a deep-standing personal grudge against Lucifer himself, Max wished to recruit this entire mercenary group into his army and make Dark Sorrow his commander with the promise of someday leading him to fight Lucifer. Although it remained to be seen if Dark Sorrow would be convinced by Max's offer. One thing was clear, that if the strong demon hunter did agree to join Max's army it would be a big boost to his military might because not only was the man trained personally by the Holy Church which gave him a great understanding on how to nurture and train talents, but was also a ferocious tactician proven to have led his small squad to many great victories, which made him perfect for the post of commander. //////A/N Bonus chapter for hitting the Grow a Tree target on Discord. Good job everyone who participated in this event. ////// Chapter 437 Sebastian the Demon Slayer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System notification. You have entered Dark Faction territory. Please note that there will be no safe zone for you within Dark Faction lands and teleportation feature will be disabled. The frigate ship entered the Dark Faction lands and the system notification caused everyone to be on their toes. They had finally entered the legendary Dark Faction as a light faction player, and although it was just another part of the universe with no physical change in the surroundings, being inside the Dark Faction was a psychological burden for first-timers. Their destination this time was Arkansas Planet, a war-ridden lawless place where demons ran amok. Currently the adjudicators were on that planet trying to take down the demons and it was there that Max hoped to meet up with Dark Sorrow. BDNV, sir, we shall enter Arkansas's atmosphere in under 3 minutes, the pilot reported to Max who nodded in understanding and braced for atmospheric entry. The military frigates provided by the Titus clan were state-of-the-art, which meant that the atmospheric entry inside them was much more comfortable as compared to a merchant ship which rocked from side to side and caused one to have uncomfortable ear-popping. The ship landed very peacefully near a village which was still burning from the fires of war, seemingly having undergone a big fight not more than 2 hours ago. Hissus Max bared his fangs as soon as he landed on the planet's soil as a thick stench of blood entered his nostrils causing his vampire fangs to involuntarily come out. Sebastian, who was the most fired up, straightaway sprinted towards the village to find clues of where the fight was ongoing now as he was delighted to see demon corpses littered all over the village in what seemed to be a one-sided mauling. Demons were easy to recognize, most of them had pitch dark skins, small horns over their head and a tall build. The greater demons had the ability to grow wings out of their backs and had runic tattoos over their bodies, while some special types of demons did not have the horns and black skins but had a rather human-like build. The corpses littered on this battlefield were mostly ordinary demons, however there were a couple of high-ranking demons amongst their midst. The trail of blood goes north, some demons have fled the village and it looks like the mercenaries have given a chase. If we hurry we can probably get there while the fight still rages on, Sebastian said as Max nodded and gave him his approval to sprint ahead. Sebastian was unhinged today, just like how Max had once promised himself that he would become Vampire King one day. Sebastian had promised himself that he would make all demons pay for what Asmodeus did to him. He had lost his body, his pride and his height because of the demons, and for that he made it his life's purpose to make them pay. Rushing north with a sword in his hand, Sebastian was ready to jump into battle at the first sight of the enemy. 15 minutes later, Sebastian had sprinted so fast that he had lost tail of Max and the other soldiers behind him, however since he could hear the clanging of metals up ahead he did not wish to slow down. Up ahead, an archer was holding off against a demon, however the nimble man who looked like a lanky stickman was visibly no match for the 7-foot-tall demon who had managed to catch the archer in a close-ranged battle. The demon wielded a heavy sword and was relentless slashing it against the elf who was desperately blocking it with his steel bow, but was reeling backwards with every blocked attempt. Just as the archer was about to ditch the bow for a short dagger and pull a fast one on the demon, something unexpected happened out of the blue. A short dwarf suddenly appeared sailing with the wind 7 feet above ground, as it attacked the demon from its blind side and pierced a sword straight through the back of his skull out through his nose. Ororara, the dwarf shouted as he banged his chest and pulled his sword out of the demon's dead corpse before continuing his sprint in search of more demons. The elf archer who saw the demon dying before his eyes felt his worldview collapse at this moment, because clearly the short and fat dwarf had somehow jumped so high in the air and took down a strong demon with one single attack just moments ago. In the elf's eyes, dwarves were a useless species whose only love was forging weapons. However, this incident of this half-mad half-bloodthirsty dwarf broke that illusion in his mind. Moments later, a party of vampires rushed past his spot as they laughed and winked in his direction, leaving him to wonder what the fuck was going on here right now. Dark Sorrow's POV, it's over demon, no matter how much you run now, I will find you and kill you, Dark Sorrow said as he addressed the demon general of the enemy camp who was badly wounded and retreating at this moment. Ha ha ha. You might catch me Dark Sorrow, but shall not kill me. In your mad desire to kill me, you failed to inspect your environment. I've lured you to a hidden demon stronghold. Just 300 meters from here 3 tier 5 demon generals and over 40 high demons are lying in wait for you. We planned this from the beginning. Today you shall perish by our hands. Ha ha ha. Ugh, the demon who was speaking suddenly dropped dead as his decapitated head rolled towards the ground. Blood squirted everywhere from his dead body as a small dwarf stood over his fallen body enjoying the feeling of being covered by the dead demon's still warm blood. This is why I hate demons, they talk way too much. Fucking amateurs, the dwarf said before kicking the decapitated demon head like a football and rushing towards the direction that the dead demon general said that the hidden stronghold was. Chapter 438 Desirable Qualities. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Dark Sorrow stood wondering where the weird dwarf had randomly come from. As he was wondering this, he was then stunned to see a party of 15 vampires being led by a man with a weird mask on. This was Dark Faction territory. Vampires were not supposed to be here unless they were defectors or traitors. But looking at their casual visage, Dark Sorrow could easily tell that they were neither defectors nor traitors but rather were hunters just like he was. Dwarf. Max asked casually. That way, Dark Sorrow pointed as Max nodded and began jogging in the direction where Dark Sorrow pointed Sebastian to be. Since the demon stronghold was also in that direction, Dark Sorrow decided to follow the entourage of vampires as well as he whistled in his mercenary group's signature style to let the other scattered members nearby know that he was fine and heading towards the next fight. Soon, the vampire entourage was joined by over 20 mercenaries and Dark Sorrow himself as the group fearlessly marched towards the demon stronghold. Dark Sorrow carefully studied the vampire group and observed how they walked in a tight formation like a military unit and obeyed the man in the mask absolutely. Having the same uniform, they seemed to be a part of some clan and seemed to be out here on a mission. Dark Sorrow did not understand their motive behind coming to this dangerous place, but since demons seemed to be their enemy as well, he treated them as friends for now. Amongst the vampire unit, the only one Dark Sorrow could not inspect at all was the man with the mask, as neither did he leak any aura, nor did the inspect spell work on him. His unnatural speed and high stamina was an indicator that he was at least tier 4 and may even be tier 5, however without any way to be sure Dark Sorrow could only guess. The dwarf is with you? Dark Sorrow asked with a concerned expression on his face. Yeah, a buddy of mine, Max casually replied. Can he handle multiple tier 5 opponents? Dark Sorrow asked. Probably not, Max replied as he increased his pacing while giving this reply. Soon the group reached the area where Sebastian was madly dodging the attacks of over 40 demons in what seemed to be him jumping into an ambush which he did not properly understand. Oh Master Kremeth, please forgive me, in my hot-blooded youth I forgot to traverse the path of the coward and rushed in blindly. Forgive me, I demon, that's my tush, don't set it on fire, Sebastian shouted as he barely evaded a fireblast cast by the enemy. Max chuckled as he saw this scene. His friend was playing the unassuming role of the clown and was pretending to be in trouble, but in reality everything was under his control. Even if Max did not interfere here in this fight, Sebastian could kill all the demons except the tier 5 opponents by himself given enough time. However, Max could not let this opportunity to impress Dark Sorrow go to waste. "I'm sorry my friend, but I got to jump in," Max thought as he looked at his troops and said, "Cover him, kill them all." Gaia the vampires yelled as they charged into battle, with Max leading the fray with his fire spells. Fireblast, 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 Inferno, Fireblast, Fireball, Flame Wall, Fireblast, Inferno, Fireblast. Within seconds the entire battlefield was turned into the insides of a dwarf's smelting furnace as demons had their bodies set on fire left, right and center. Not only did Max not even pant when casting so many spells, but from the speed of his casting and their strength Dark Sorrow was sure that he was an extremely accomplished warrior. One of the demons on the enemy side who could use Fireblast spell had a head on collision with Max's Fireblast, and the demon's spell was neutralized in an instant before his body was set ablaze by Max's attack. This was irrefutable proof for Dark Sorrow that the vampire's spells were much stronger than the norm, and he was impressed as a result. Adjudicators, don't let the vampires steal all the limelight. Attack! Dark Sorrow ordered as his men entered the fray as well, turning the tide of the battle decisively. It was Dark Sorrow's turn to flex as he charged into the battle with his glowing sword and swiftly dealt with a group of 3 demons with a single attack, the Holy Slash. It was a tier 4 attack, one of the last techniques that he had learnt from the church before his dishonorable discharge. He wished to check the vampire leader's reaction to his attack, however, abandoned that thought midway when he saw the little dwarf biting a demon's ear off while simultaneously stabbing another one in the eye. What's wrong with that dwarf? Dark Sorrow wondered as his momentary distraction made him oblivious to the enemy tier 5 demon's sneak attack. By the time Dark Sorrow noticed, a poison-laced dagger was almost at his throat. He moved in a desperate attempt to dodge and was successful in moving just enough so that the dagger won't penetrate his neck but rather only scrape the skin. However, that might have been enough to kill him considering that the dagger was laced with poison. Thankfully, the vampire leader noticed the danger before him and manifested a fire shield in front of his neck at the critical last moment, blocking the dagger from scraping his neck as he got enough time to move away completely. Not one to be fazed by such setbacks, Dark Sorrow instantly bounced back as he charged towards the enemy who had dared to sneak attack him, engaging in a one-on-one combat with the tier 5 demon. Max calmly observed how the battle unfolded on Dark Sorrow's side and was pleasantly surprised by his personal battle skills as well as situational awareness. Not only did he hold his own against his tier 5 opponent, but also found enough opportunity to instruct his mercenary group members about who needed cover and who needed immediate tactical support. His ability to fight, but not lose the sight of the bigger picture as well as the instinct to protect his men were all desirable qualities that Max was looking in for his future commander, and so far Dark Sorrow did fit the bill quite well. //////A/N Bonus chapter for hitting the grow a tree target. Good job guys. ///// Chapter 439 Offer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The fight against the demons was intense. It took a full 2 hours for the disciplined vampire forces with the added help of the mercenaries to wipe them out as Dark Sorrow teamed up with Max to take on the tier 5 opponents. In the end there were no major casualties, everyone survived with only scratches, and the only one dead tired from the ordeal seemed to be Sebastian. That dwarf, he has one hell of an engine inside himself, Dark Sorrow said, panting as he sat beside Max and pointed toward Sebastian. That he does, Max replied as he parted his fingers into a V sign. This was probably the first fight where Max had seen Sebastian go all out since their training inside Dragon's Paradise ended. He bust out all of his big moves and kept up his relentless rate of assault, killing at least 24 demons total including 5 tier 4 opponents. Dark Sorrow was thankful to this random vampire party who made his extermination job on this planet easier, because he understood that without their help it would have been hard for the mercenary troops to handle this assault, and even if they did manage to win, the losses would have been much more sizable. I don't think we are acquainted, so let me introduce myself. I'm called Dark Sorrow. It's not my birth name but my in-game name that I chose after my planet was integrated with the Queen and I got the opportunity to ascend to the Morningstar planet, Dark Sorrow said as he waited for Max to reply. I'm Lord Raven Bloodfall, the patriarch of the Bloodfall clan, a vampire noble. This is my army and that dwarf if Sebastian a dear friend, Max said as he did not reveal much about his origins but only about his noble title. What sequence is your human planet in the universal integration? Max asked as he wanted to lead with this question to get to the point. #H2043 Dark Sorrow replied as Max grinned ear to ear. He himself was from sequence H2047, which meant that Dark Sorrow's planet was integrated 4 planets before Max's. I have a close friend who integrated from H2047, he shares your immense hatred for the demon clan, you might have heard of his brother, Max said casually as he gauged Dark Sorrow's reaction. Oh, who might he be? Dark Sorrow asked curiously, just like Max hoped he would. How much do you know about Shikini one night? Max asked as internally he felt weird about addressing his brother this way. Not much, just that he was the first human ever to graduate Omega, a tier 6 god, and that he fought with a monarch and won. In the end, he was killed by Lucifer. Dark Sorrow replied honestly, well, he was not killed by Lucifer, but the devil used trickery to dishonestly kill him after his fight with Thor ended. He somehow sneaked in from the Universal Queen's restrictions and slayed Shikini as the other gods watched helplessly. A messy affair. Max said with anger evident in his voice, momentarily forgetting that he was playing the role of an aloof noble. The devil is indeed wicked. Dark Sorrow said as he sighed, well, that he is and I plan to kill him someday, Max said with conviction as his words made Dark Sorrow jolt awake as he looked at Max with a weird expression. Shikuni's little brother Max is my sworn brother. I share his hatred for the devil. I know I'm not strong enough to fight the devil now. But I'm building my strength rapidly. It may take me a decade or 2, but someday I'm charging down the dark faction lands to bring the fight to Lucifer. That's a promise, Max said with a resolute expression on his face that made Dark Sorrow's stomach roll with anticipation. He could tell just by Max's tone that he was serious about bringing the fight to Lucifer someday, and he was the first man in charge of an actual army that Dark Sorrow had met that was willing to do so. In his lifetime he had met many men who wanted to take on the devil. He had gathered quite a few of those men himself to form his mercenary group. However, never had he met someone at a high position of power with an actual army that wanted to risk everything they had for a conflict with the devil. In this regard Raven was the first. I was not always a dwarf, I was a demi-god once, or a human more or less, but a demon possessed my body and the only way to save my soul was to transplant it into some other body and the only body available was of this dwarf. I was once a mighty fighter, now I'm a shell of my former self. But even in this form, I swear I'll make the life of every demon I come across miserable, Sebastian said as he joined in on the conversation and narrated his tale to Dark Sorrow. Dark Sorrow smiled, he liked the dwarf a lot, he was courageous, he was strong and despite his obvious disadvantage was a formidable warrior. Well, demons took everything they had from me as well. Then the Church of Light took me in and trained me. In the end I was kicked out for being too violent, haha. Ever since then, I've started my own mercenary group and am hunting demons, Dark Sorrow said as he felt the need to narrate his tale as well, but Max already knew about his past. Looking at Sebastian, Max winked as Sebastian understood the signal. Then you should join us. Sebastian said as he extended his short hand for Dark Sorrow to shake. Dark Sorrow scoffed then glanced at Max who was smiling as he realized that even the vampire leader was considering this request. Well, I do lack a capable commander and have no qualms with violent behavior. If you wish to take the spot, it's all yours, Max offered as Dark Sorrow was stunned by the sudden development. He wanted to say no, but the words did not come out of his mouth as he understood the potential of leading a large army and living the life of a reputed commander-in-chief. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with the vampires, he could understand that they were good people and Raven's character certainly did not seem bad. But did he really want to live such a life? ///////n. It's time to launch a new series, guys. I call it 10 days 30 chapters, 3 each day. After looking at the overwhelming GT support I'm getting from you guys, I feel compelled to repeat a toned-down version of what we did last month. This is chapter 130th, day 1, let's go. // Chapter 440 Convincing Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dark Sorrow thought about Raven's offer for a lengthy time, his silence on the matter making his mercenary brethren uncomfortable as the seconds passed. How long will it take you to launch a demon incursion? Even if I do accept your offer and join your organization like I once joined the church, my ultimate goal is the annihilation of the demon race. I won't feel comfortable serving you if in the end our goals don't align, Dark Sorrow said as he looked towards Max for his reply. I'll annihilate the demons as soon as I'm strong enough. Although it seems like a joke for someone to hope to become as strong as the devil, but I have faith in my own abilities that I'll get there. Once I become tier 8 and ascend the throne as the Vampire King, I'll turn the entire monarchy against the demons of the Dark faction. The goal being the death of Lucifer, Max replied honestly as he did not mislead Dark Sorrow about his ambition. Dark Sorrow chuckled as he heard this. Being a tier 5 warrior, he understood the wide chasm that separated one from tier 5 to tier 6, a chasm that he needed to prepare for at least a decade to attempt to cross. If just ascending to godhood was so hard, the subsequent power-ups were sure to be even more ridiculous. As the EXP requirement to ascend each level aside, the actual tier promotion test was sure to be something that only a handful could ever pass. In this universe there were trillions of life forms, yet only a few thousand gods and only about 24 individuals to reach the realm of the monarch. It was true that only a monarch could take on Lucifer the devil, however, the path to reaching tier 8 was full of perils and uncertainty. The promise that the Vampire Lord had given him was very shaky and might never come to fruition, however it was true and without deceit. I'll accept your offer, Lord Raven, however, I'll do it only if you can defeat me in one-on-one combat. I know my own potential, I'll be a god, but probably that is where my journey ends. Show me that you have what it takes to be a monarch and I will follow you, Dark Sorrow said as all of his mercenary brethren sucked in a breath of cold air. Their leader had made an abrupt decision to jump ship, their ambitions to hunt demons till the end of time seemed to have been cut short. But Sorrow, what about our dreams? One of the mercenary asked, what dreams? My dream is to kill Lucifer. We won't be able to do it without an army. I'm proud to serve with you guys in this mercenary group, however, against a demon army how much difference can our ragtag group really make? The best we can do is fight on such lawless dark faction planets and eliminate the local demon hoodlums. I need something more meaningful. I'm sorry, Dark Sorrow said as he expressed his peace of mind. His brethren felt betrayed by his decision, but they also understood his conviction. His hatred for Lucifer was the strongest amongst them all, and anyone could tell with their eyes closed that teaming up with Raven was the better way to get to Lucifer rather than fighting in a small group like this alone. Standing up, Max brought out his bone staff as he swished it and pointed it at Dark Sorrow as he said, I'll fight you, but just know that it's a tier 4 fighting against a tier 5. Dark Sorrow could not believe his ears when he heard Raven say that he was tier 4. The two had fought shoulder to shoulder just moments ago, and whether in speed or power the two were not much different at all. Is he really tier 4? Dark Sorrow asked Sebastian for confirmation as the dwarf nodded with a smile. It was only now that Dark Sorrow truly understood the monster he was facing in battle. I guess then I'll go easy on you, he said with a smile as he charged towards Max. Fireblast. Max started with Fireblast as he wished to slow down the rapidly charging enemy's rhythm, however Dark Sorrow seemed to have anticipated this move as he did a front flip over the attack and continued to charge towards Max without losing a beat. Paladin Slice. Dark Sorrow unleashed a sword slice towards Max, while also bursting with speed and following closely behind the sword chi blast he had just created. Max analyzed the attack pattern quickly and saw the genius of Dark Sorrow's attack pattern. Even if Max blocked the first sword slash aimed for his neck, he would have to raise one or both of his hands to block the attack, which would leave a section of his body undefended against the follow-up attack by Dark Sorrow who was coming hot on the tail of the slash. If he tried to dodge the attack by bending down or jumping to the side, Dark Sorrow would immediately capitalize on the opening and send another attack towards him in a position where he would be unable to either block or dodge. The masterfully crafted attack sequence seemed like a sure-fire checkmate. However, Max was not the average fighter. Firewall. Max created a tall firewall between himself and Dark Sorrow as he momentarily cut off the vision of Dark Sorrow. Naturally, his sword strike sliced through the firewall like butter, since the attack power of the move was much stronger than the Tier 1 defensive spell. However, Max had already taken advantage of the Shroud of Vision loss and dodged the attack without giving Dark Sorrow the chance to counterattack while he was moving. By the time Dark Sorrow relocated him, Max was ready to blast him with an Inferno spell which hit him right at the chest. Boom. 12, 700 Max's attack hit Sorrow straight on the chest and the impact caused him to break 3 tree branches before crashing against a trunk. A trickle of blood dripped from his lips as he smiled and looked at the man who inflicted these wounds on him. Although his HP bar was still mostly intact and this fight was a long way from its conclusion were it a life-and-death battle, this small exchange was enough for Dark Sorrow to understand the combat genius that Max truly was. Getting to his feet, Dark Sorrow bowed deeply and dropped to one knee as he said, "Happy to be at your service, Lord Raven." //a/n. Chapter February 30th, let's go. //